Sustainability initiatives are at the top of the agenda for every kind of organization, regardless of type and size. Indeed, it's becoming baked into the DNA of every type of operation. The challenge, though, for executives and organizations and stakeholders is how do you actually deliver on these new sustainability initiatives at the same time as delivering for your customers, your stakeholders, and all of your other demands for your day-to-day business. Most organizations, of course, don't operate in a vacuum. They're part of complex ecosystems, supply chains. They work with many different types of partners across the world. So any initiatives regarding their own sustainable operations and transformations often have to take account of what their partners are also doing. At the same time, technology is evolving, regulation is becoming more demanding, society is also becoming more demanding, so these are also applying more and more pressures on top of the organization as they drive towards a sustainable future. So how do we make sense of all of this complexity? Well, one of the best ways of doing that, of course, is to talk to global leaders who have been driving transformational change across vast organizations. And that's why we're really excited to have a conversation with Anirban Ghosh, who is Chief Sustainability Officer for the Mahindra Group. Now, this is a massive organization with business interests spanning from agriculture to financial services to construction, energy, IT. And there are many, many different types of sustainable challenges and journeys that those customers and those operations are involved in. So Anirban's going to give us some examples of some of the challenges and opportunities around driving new business on these journeys. Anirban Ghosh, we're so pleased to welcome you from Copenhagen. Welcome, welcome.
Thank you for having me here, Patrick.
Now, could you just start by telling us a little bit about your role within the Mahindra Group?
I am the Chief Sustainability Officer of the Mahindra Group. It's a group with revenue around $20 billion and a number of very diverse businesses. We have an automotive business that makes pickup trucks, SUVs, and a range of other vehicles. We make agricultural tractors. In fact, we make more agricultural tractors than anybody else in the world. We have a finance business, an information technology business. These are the four largest businesses in the group. But other than this, there's a construction business. There's one in holiday resorts, one in logistics, and a few others.
And of course, across those many different types of businesses and industries, they all have supply chains and partners and different challenges in terms of their transformation towards a more sustainable future. So how do you and your team, how do you stay on top of all of the complexity with what has to be done?
You know, Patrick, when we started the journey, the common question used to be that how will you handle the diversity of requirements across businesses for sustainability? But when we got going and we looked at what each business was expected to do, we found that there was a lot of similarity. After all, we were all trying to solve the main problem of too much carbon dioxide in the air, and then a few others around it. So we actually built a sustainability framework that captured, in essence, what each business needed to do. The elements of the the importance of the elements of the framework varies across businesses, but what businesses need to do is captured very nicely in the Mahindra sustainability framework.
So you take all of those insights from different customers, say from agricultural or from manufacturing, and you have special components within your framework that you can then apply to different customers and different industries.
That's correct. That's correct.
And do you have a team around the world that is with the expertise for this, or how is that capability spread across the Mahindra Group?
Yes, there are people doing work in sustainability in each individual business, but more importantly, sustainability work is embedded into functions of every business. In the future, just like we've had the total quality movement some 20, 30 years ago, when there used to be a special quality department and then gradually quality became a part of everything we do. We see sustainability becoming something like that in the future. That there is a sustainability department today guiding people on what needs to be done, but going forward it will become integrated into every little thing that we do.
So it in effect becomes business as usual. It becomes part of the everyday activity, and it's tied to all of the the profitability and the cost metrics and all of this, that these kind of things that you have to measure.
Oh, absolutely. In fact, for a business, the story of sustainability includes everything that it has been doing so far to be resilient, to perform well. But while doing that, we have to ensure that we are rejuvenating the planet and enabling stakeholders to rise. So far, the idea of balancing community and planet while doing business was an idea that was not practiced widely by everybody. But we know the climate crisis is on us, and that to do sustainable business, to be around for the next 50, 70 years, incidentally the Mahindra Group is celebrating 75 years this year, but to be around for the next 75, we can't carry on the way we were doing business in the past. We've got to ensure that we are working within planetary boundaries, and we've got to ensure that we are working in a way in which value is shared with all stakeholders associated with the business.
Now, even though you're driving leadership in terms of sustainability across the many different industries, do you find that more demands come in all the time as more pressure from the global communities, from the regulation, from society, the opportunities around technology? Is there more pressure all of the time to do even more things faster across your group?
You know, this is an evolving field. Conversations have been happening for quite some time, especially at the level of the government. Companies have got into this conversation and in this action for a little less than 10 years now. I guess it accelerated around the time of COP21 at Paris. And because it's an evolving field, newer and newer things are becoming possible. And like you correctly said, expectations are also rising. Countries have made commitments. They can't meet their commitments if companies don't step up and work in a way which is more climate and people friendly. So yes, pressures increase, but then many climate solutions are also emerging. So we are able to do a lot more, much more than what we could do before. Indeed.
And what also fascinates me is how you stay on top of all of this. So with so many things happening almost in real time, people running everyday business operations at the same time as having to hit new sustainability targets, and not just within the group, but also within your interactions with the suppliers and the partners and the value chains. How do you actually track and monitor that? Does that leadership, obviously, it can't just sit at the top. It has to be baked into the whole group at every level.
This is a very collaborative space, Patrick. And because it's a collaborative space, people are happy to share learning with each other. Just as we are in any forum, we are given a chance, we are happy to share what we've discovered, where have we succeeded, what are we trying to do, what are the solutions we would like to have, and figure out ways of working together so that newer and newer solutions evolve. While doing this work, we realize that the environmental impact of our business happens not only from our factories, but through the entire supply chain, and when our products are in use. So actions have to be taken so that we are able to do deep decarbonization right across, from the supply chain, through the factories, through when consumers are using products. It's a very interesting opportunity because we can create climate-friendly solutions for customers to use. Some time ago, we did a little survey of people in India across our urban locations and discovered that awareness was very high, that people understood that the way they were living their lives was having a negative impact on the planet and on the environment. But they also said that if we want to do something which is more climate friendly, we don't have the solutions and we don't have the technologies. And so it's incumbent on businesses like ours to provide solutions to consumers so that they can lead a low carbon life in the future. And the Mahindra Group has invested in a few businesses. They're all small as of now, which is why I didn't mention them up front, but things like renewable energy, building green buildings, converting waste to energy, recycling old automobiles, electric vehicles. So we've invested in all of these so that these technologies are then widely available for people to adopt and lead low carbon lifestyles.
So these new organizations and assets that you acquire, then you start bringing them together. You combine them, the different business units, including Tech Mahindra, of course, in different ways to facilitate advances in sustainability for both the Mahindra Group, but also for your customers. So could you give us some examples of how some of these collaborations are working within the Mahindra Group?
Okay, let me take a quick example of an integrated city that we have called the Mahindra World City in the southern part of India, in Chennai. When we set this place up, we realized that after some time we'll have to create space for a landfill, like every other city does. And we felt that the land was far too valuable to waste for a landfill. So we asked the question, how do we prevent waste from going to landfill? And realized that 60% of everything that goes to landfill is pure energy, and in the form of food waste. So we said, why don't we create a system by which we generate energy from the food waste that gets, that is produced in our canteens and in the various industries that are present in Mahindra World City, so that we don't need that landfill space at all. And so was born a very interesting waste to energy plant there at the Mahindra World City. And when the Minister of Environment and Forest came to inaugurate that plant, he asked the question, why are you doing this only in your integrated city? Why don't you do it in other parts of the country as well? And that led to us setting up a little company called Mahindra Waste to Energy Solutions Limited. We've worked with the city of Indore in the heart of India, which has gone on to become the cleanest city of the country. So what was initially a small little project for Mahindra World City Chennai has now been scaled up by the government as a very important food waste to energy project right around the country.
And that's a great example. And in doing that, then you create a new business model, new profit centers, new opportunities to actually drive economic growth from your sustainability initiatives. And of course, we have many thousands of cities around the world that probably would love to engage with you on this opportunity.
Absolutely. In fact, Mr. Anand Mahindra has often said that climate change and sustainability are probably the biggest business opportunities for the century.
And you mentioned at the start in your introduction that the number of different industries, and of course they all have their own different agendas or demands in terms of driving sustainability improvements. But could you maybe say whether some industries are more advanced than others, or are there some industries that are still, they have a long way to catch up? Any thoughts around that?
You know, the way to look at this probably is where can action be taken today? Where are solutions available today? So a lot of energy efficiency and renewable energy solutions are available. Therefore, we can move rapidly towards decarbonizing our manufacturing operations. One of the companies in the group is a small steelmaking company. There is only so much we can do with that operation to decarbonize it. Luckily, this steelmaking operation uses electric arc furnaces, which is more sustainable than the blast furnaces which are used in many other steel plants. So, but despite that, the extent of decarbonization possible, let's say in an automotive factory, is way higher than the decarbonization possible today in a steel making unit. And so therefore, the question you asked, Patrick, it's better to look at it from the perspective of where are more decarbonization solutions possible today. And the approach we take within the group is, let's do what we can do today, so that when newer solutions emerge, we are ready to adopt them and have an impact on the places where we did not have impact earlier.
And when you find an opportunity to really scale something, how do you propagate that across the group? So if you've got something amazing that you've just developed in one of the businesses, how do you drive that scale?
We've got a bunch of change agents in the group called sustainability champions. And typically we share success stories among sustainability champions from across the group. And when sustainability champions from a business feel that a particular solution or technology is relevant for their business, then the group sustainability team works with that champion and that business to expose the relevant people from the business to these technologies. And also, if we've already implemented it somewhere in the group, to give them a sense of what it took to implement it, how much it cost, what are the benefits, who could they work with. We've created a little repository of such stories and successes and partnerships and discoveries in the form of a sustainability app. In fact, I'm reaching out to colleagues of mine in Tech Mahindra to make this app something that people would love to use across the group. And it will serve as a way of disseminating best practices we've discovered or partnerships we have in one business across other businesses in the group.
And these sustainability, I'd come back to the app in a minute, sounds fascinating. The sustainability agents, do they also work with customers, or is it more internally focused within the group?
So there are some businesses where the sustainability folks are from marketing. And in fact, our construction business, the sustainability function is headed by my colleague in marketing. And it's a very interesting reason why it is headed by a person from marketing, because not only is it important for that business to use technologies to build green buildings, it is important for that business to reach out to consumers and explain the benefits of purchasing an apartment in a green building, because it's not so commonly known so far. So my colleague plays a very key role in spreading awareness about the importance of buying apartments in green buildings, and in the process actually managing to sell their own apartments a lot faster than the regular apartments. Last month, I think it was, that we launched India's first net zero energy residential project. That project sold out within the day, if I'm not mistaken. And its biggest calling card was the fact that it was a net zero energy building using only renewable energy for the energy that it required. And the energy it required is a lot less than a conventional building, because everything that was there in the building was built in a way in which it was very highly energy efficient.
Now, Anirban, I actually have a personal question for you. So You've been involved in the sustainability agenda, transformation, and strategy for many, many years and involved across many different industries. Now, I'm interested to know, and I think the audience would be interested to know, is what drives you personally in what you do?
You know, I grew up at a time in India when we were continuously trying to become better. We were a developing country, a very poor country at that point in time, with a lot of belief that we could be as good as anybody else in the world. But to be able to get there, we had to do a lot of hard work. And I've always taken a lot of pride and pleasure in what we call in Mahindra driving positive change. So when I look back at the assignments I've really enjoyed, every assignment where we were doing something that would fundamentally shape the country is something that I've loved to do. So I joined the Mahindra Group in the agriculture business. When I joined, there were 16 tractors per 1,000 hectares in our country. The world average was 28 tractors per 1,000 hectares. By the time I left the tractor business, we had about 30 tractors per 1,000 hectares in our country. We'd caught up with the world average. And the business itself was the largest manufacturer of agricultural tractors. But more importantly, rural India had gone from being seen as a basket case, shall we say, to being the breadbasket of the country. The increase in production of food in the same amount of land was from about 190 million tons to 270 million tons. So you can see the impact of the work of farm mechanization and of course all the other hard work about agricultural best practices that happened in the Indian rural ecosystem. And as a result of which, today when India grows, it grows because rural India is doing very well. And it gives me great pleasure to have been a part of this journey. In fact, sometimes I say the only useful project I've done in my life is the one where we did, it is called Integrated Watershed Management. And as a result of this project, about 40,000 Indians across 68 villages experienced a threefold increase in per capita income over a period of 5 to 7 years. It has fundamentally changed their lives, and it gives me great pleasure to see the impact that our teams have had in working to harness water and enable the increase of incomes in these villages. So that's what really gets me going, Patrick.
Fascinating. And of course, India is a vast country, and you have research institutions, universities, schools, startup ecosystems, all of the different industries, and people creating and inventing things all the time that can be deployed. Does the Mahindra Group work with different research institutions and universities to actually take advantage of some of the creativity that's happening around the country?
It does. There are many areas in which we work with research institutions. In fact, one of the things that we've learned to do over time is to apply for patents. Maybe 7 or 8 years ago, we had only a handful of patents in this company. Today, the number has crossed 1,000. And that's a lot of it is because of a research center that we developed in Chennai called the Mahindra Research Valley, which does extensive research on automotive engineering, and most of our patents come from there.
So, Anirban, could you tell us a little bit about the sustainability framework within the Mahindra Group that you mentioned earlier?
Before we talk about the framework, we should take a step back and ask the question, is sustainability new for a corporation? The answer is no. No corporation, however old it may be, has been trying to, say, liquidate itself. It's been trying to endure. It's been trying to, be there forever. So you have 100-year-old companies and 175-year-old companies. companies that have been operating long before the word sustainability became popular. So then what is this new conversation on sustainability? Actually, if we want to be sustainable for the next 100 years, we have to do a few things differently. And one of the things we have to do differently is, while doing business, we have to make sure that we are not having a negative impact on the environment and a negative impact on stakeholders and communities around us. That's the new thing we have to do. In fact, we've possibly caused so much harm that we have to undo a whole bunch of it as well. So climate action is often about undoing the unintended consequences of industrialization of the past. This is the thought behind the creation of the sustainability framework. So we've defined sustainability in the sustainability framework as a way to build enduring business while rejuvenating the planet and enabling stakeholders to rise. The business was always trying to be enduring, but sustainability for the future is to be enduring while you are rejuvenating the planet and enabling stakeholders to rise. And that's how it captures people, planet, and profit together. In fact, Mr. Mahindra in one of his speeches famously finished by saying, "People plus planet is equal to profit." If we take a step back and ask the question, what is the purpose of business? It has always been about making lives better for people. That's why business is in place. But in our effort to get greater returns, to optimize efficiencies and various other conversations we have around businesses, we completely forgot that the purpose of business is to make people's lives better. I think when businesses talk about being purpose-led, this thought is coming back again. And this is what is captured in the sustainability framework through the definition and the 3 pillars on people, planet, and profit. And you will notice at the bottom of the framework there are 2 things. One is about partnering, learning, and sharing, because we cannot do this alone. It's too big a problem to solve. You asked me earlier about spreading the good practices across the group. This is the bit about sharing, and it's not only across the group but across industries. And right at the bottom is our approach to sustainability. And I'm sure once we get there, if all of us get there, all businesses get there, that is, if we are able to give back more than we take from nature, we would have created an ecosystem which is fundamentally sustainable. And it will be an ecosystem where people like you and me will live comfortably, equitably, and all together.
Thank you. And this framework, I guess, is getting updated all the time as new learnings come along. New expertise from different industries is shared, as you say, across from agriculture to construction, best practices, and then technology and process is embedded in this framework. So it's kind of a living organism.
Oh, absolutely. In fact, there is one change which I would really like to make to the framework. Haven't done it yet. You will find a phrase called promote biodiversity. I think we've learned that you cannot try and engineer biodiversity, but you can be successful if you help nature help herself. Because that whole ecosystem is so complex that if you just stand back and not make a mess of the ecosystem, it just comes back on its own. It revives on its own. And we saw that during COVID. So that's a change I would definitely want to bring in. And the short answer to your question is yes, it's a living organism that is evolving as we go along.
So, Anirban, I guess there's a lot of organizations and individuals out there who are really, they're not sure how to actually start on this complex journey of sustainability. So what kind of advice would you have for someone who's really, or an organization that's really beginning its journey here?
Thank you for that question, Patrick. This is a conversation we have very often. And I know that there are fears that sustainability is expensive, that sustainability is a burden on an organization, or there is also the thought that sustainability is the government's job. But we've discovered in the Mahindra Group that sustainability actually makes great sense for business. That there are many ways of taking climate action which give very high returns on investment. And not adopting these solutions is actually not good for business, because whichever business doesn't adopt these solutions is likely to get left behind by other people. There are many things we can do in the sustainability space which reduces cost, adds to revenue, mitigates risk, all the things that CEOs want to do, investors are looking for, and you can do it while you are taking action which is also great for the planet. So doing well while doing good is a real possibility, and if any organization hasn't got started, I would just say that start with whatever makes sense for you. There are a lot of technologies out there already which make business sense, and I'm sure any industry forum will be happy to share these technologies. In fact, in Copenhagen, there's a wonderful center for energy efficiency, and that whatever they talk about in that center are things that businesses can do and save a lot of money in the process.
So how would you summarize some of the complex things that we've been discussing and just give the audience some food for thought in terms of your approach to driving the journey of sustainability?
Let me try this in two ways. If the context is of sustainable business, then let me say that sustainability is the means, the end is resilience for the business. And I don't see why any business would not want to follow the path of resilience. But if I look at it from the perspective of communities, then what we are actually trying to do through climate action and sustainability is to make sure that the planet remains comfortable for people like you and me to live in. Sometimes when we are discussing sustainability, we lose sight of that and only think about saving the planet. The planet will remain. Question is whether we will have a comfortable life on the planet in the next 50, 100 years or not. So sustainability is essentially about people. And for businesses, sustainability is the means, the end is resilience.
Anirban Ghosh, thank you very much for your insights.
You're welcome. Thank you for the conversation. It was a pleasure talking to you.
That's the end of our conversation today. We hope you got some great insights from our guest, Anirban Ghosh. We'd like to thank DLA Piper for hosting us in their wonderful boardroom in the center of sunny Copenhagen.